Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reisch, and this is Crime Talk, the most fact-driven, unbiased, true crime channel. First on the docket, the Daytona Beach police officer shooter has been identified. Second, John McAfee. Did he suicide himself? Third, Rudy Giuliani is suspended from the practice of law in New York. We'll explain. Fourth, why was Maggie Murdaugh's phone found on a rural road? Wait until you hear the excuse for a guy taking a boat, a little boat, for a joyride. And then finally, our dumb criminal contestant of the day. Let's talk about it. Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. This is Crime Talk, and my name is Scott Reisch. Thanks for watching. If you haven't done so already, please hit that little subscribe button as well as the bell so that you receive notifications of when we go live or put up new content. Let's get straight to the docket today. First, a suspect has been identified in the Daytona Beach shooting, which has resulted in the death of an officer. The suspect has been identified as 29-year-old Othal Wallace, O-T-H-A-L, Othal Wallace, as the authorities have offered a reward of $100,000 leading to his arrest. And why should he be arrested? Obviously, given the presumption of innocence, but he is a dangerous person. All right, the shooting occurred about 8:50 p.m. in Daytona Beach, Florida. After the unnamed police officer confronted Wallace, who was later publicly identified as Sheriff Mike Chitwood. The body cam video released by the Daytona Beach Police Department on Wednesday evening shows the officer approach Wallace, who's sitting in a car. It's a 2016 Honda HR-V, and the officer asked if he lived in the area. Wallace was filmed immediately getting out of the vehicle and asked what's going on, as the officers tried to calm him down and urged him to sit back down in the car. The suspect then said, come on now, don't do this." As the officer put his hands on Wallace and attempted to have him go sit back in the car, before there was a struggle, the 29-year-old appeared to push the officer away. Although the footage was very grainy, a struggle could be seen between the pair in the clip before you hear a single gunshot. The officer then fell to the ground. The Daytona Beach Police Department confirmed that the officer was found by his colleagues laying on the ground, suffering from a gunshot wound. When the officers were at the scene, Mr. Wallace was nowhere to be found. Certainly, flight will be used at any trial against Mr. Wallace, as there is an instruction in many jurisdictions called consciousness of guilt. And it basically says if you did nothing wrong, why would you run? Certainly not going to be a good indicator for Mr. Wallace's innocence, that's for sure. Like I said, there's a $100,000 reward. The video has been released. I've watched it. Frankly, you can't really see much of anything as it relates to the shooting itself. We're not going to put it up here simply for the fact that YouTube doesn't like anything that could be perceived as violence, and then they give us a strike, and we can't do that. Next on the docket, did John McAfee suicide himself? Yep, John McAfee was in the process of being extradited back to the United States. He has two indictments, one in Tennessee for tax evasion and another one out of the District of New York for some sort of Bitcoin-related kind of scheme. Mr. McAfee made a lot of money many decades ago when it became relevant that you needed cybersecurity software, McAfee Systems. It's since been changed, I think, to Intel Security or something like that, but it was John McAfee that did it. He resided in Belize for several years after kind of leaving the United States because of some tax issues, and ultimately had to leave there when he was questioned in regards to the death of a neighbor that he may or may not had some issues on. He was never charged, but he was getting ready to board a plane when he was arrested based upon the charges here in the United States. Now, the question has become, did he suicide himself? And why Why, we ask, would we even suggest that? Well, McAfee put out a tweet. It says, getting subtle messages from U.S. officials saying, in effect, quote, "We're coming for you, McAfee. We're going to kill yourself. I got a tattoo today just in case. If I suicide myself, I didn't. I was whacked. Check my right arm." And you can see from this photo, Mr. McAfee had a tattoo with a $sign and it says whacked, WHACKD. Like I said, the creator of the antivirus software McAfee was found dead in his jail cell near Barcelona, Spain. That was reported just hours after the Spain's national court approved his extradition to the United States. He's 75 years old. He was looking at 30 years in prison if he was convicted. Obviously, if he was convicted, he probably would have passed away in a prison here if he was convicted. We'll give him the presumption of innocence, but as we all know, when somebody dies, once charges are pending, even on appeal, you are an innocent person, innocent man. Think back to Ken Lay, convicted but died during the appeal. Conviction is vacated. Innocent man. We'll continue to follow this story just simply for the fact that it is somewhat interesting. And now the conspiracy theories will begin. Was John McAfee whacked, or was it a suicide, or was he suicided? Let me know what you think. Next on the docket, some news came out regarding the Murdaugh case in South Carolina. As most people know, if they've been following this program, we've been following this. Maggie and Paul Murdaugh were found dead on the grounds of their 1,700-acre South Carolina property. No suspects as of this time, but the police are trying to figure out why Maggie Murdaugh's phone was found on a rural road off the grounds of the property. Apparently, a relative was able to ping the location of Maggie's phone a day after the mother and son were found dead, and it tracked it to the location, which was outside the property. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The police have recovered that phone, obviously something of evidentiary value. Hopefully, there will be some DNA on that phone, which will give some indication as to who may be responsible for both of these individuals' death. It did rain that night, so it'll be questionable if any DNA will be able to be recovered and tested. Next on the docket, Rudy Giuliani gets suspended, and we're not getting political in any way. The reason why I wanted to talk about this story is people oftentimes think that, attorneys can say anything, particularly to the court. How many times have we heard say, attorneys are a bunch of liars? And I've said, and defended attorneys, like, no, you cannot lie to the court as an attorney. You have a duty as an officer of the court to be honest with the court. So Rudy Giuliani was suspended from practicing law. A lot of it had to do with his claims that the 2020 election was, in fact, fraudulent. But where he got in trouble, because Giuliani said, hey, that's my First Amendment right. I can say whatever I want. The court somewhat disagreed. The disciplinary hearing officers disagreed with that because you don't have an unlimited First Amendment right. But where he got in trouble was he had a hearing back in November of 2020 in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. And it was a suit for the Trump campaign, and they filed challenging the outcome of the presidential election in that state. The judges said that Giuliani repeatedly told the court that the campaign was advancing fraud claims in the case when that claim had been withdrawn. Now, Giuliani's mischaracterization was not simply a passing mistake or inadvertent reference. Fraud was the crown of his personal argument before the court that day. It is indisputable that Mr. Giuliani had to be aware that there were no fraud claims in the case. Significant time and effort were expended on respondents' false misrepresentations to the court regarding the nature of the proceedings. So, yes, you have to show up to be prepared in court, ladies and gentlemen, because you can't make arguments on claims that have been dismissed. And if those are false claims, you can be sanctioned as an attorney. That's where Giuliani got in big trouble. Some of the statements that also got him in trouble were misleading statements not only to the court that we just talked about, but to lawmakers and the public at large. Now, clearly, if Mr. Giuliani was acting in a political capacity, you could say anything. Why? Because politicians can say whatever they want, and they never get held accountable for that in any way. But when you're acting as the attorney, you have to be honest. Let's take a quick recess before we continue on with the docket. Please go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, sign up for a background subscription service. You'll be happy you did. If there's anyone out there you were ever curious about what was in their background, now is the time to do it. If you're going to get involved with somebody, now is the time to do it. When you go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, you put in the name, literally millions of public records are searched, and a report is generated. And it's going to give you a report. If they have multiple social media accounts, you're going to find it. If they have multiple phone numbers, multiple email addresses, it's going to be found. And more importantly, you're going to get information regarding criminal history. Hopefully the person you're searching has none whatsoever. But if it's there, it's going to be found. You're going to get everything you'd want to know, whether you're going into business or whether you're going into a personal relationship. You're going to be able to find out the information you want to know. So go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, sign up today. You'll be happy you did. All right, next on the docket, take a look at this boat. That's not a boat. That's a super yacht, okay? It's a super yacht. Well, a guy by the name of Robert Morris, well, he thought he would take that super yacht for a spin. That's right. He took the super yacht from the Safe Harbor Gaines Marina in Rouse's Point, New York. He did this just the other day. The 48-foot boat was not owned by Mr. Morris, but a gentleman by the name of Ron McCarthy. And Mr. McCarthy says, I never gave permission to Mr. Morris to take my yacht for a spin. That is theft, ladies and gentlemen. You can't take things of someone else without their permission. To make a long story short, Mr. Morris allegedly drove the yacht from New York up to Vermont, where he was apprehended by U.S. Border Patrol helicopters patrolling the area where the boat was spotted. Morris was obviously charged with possession of stolen property and operating the boat without consent of the owner, i.e. theft. Well, when Mr. Morris appeared in court, clearly just a big misunderstanding, he stated that he was water testing the boat after fixing some mechanical problems on the yacht. He told police that he had permission from the owner to drive the boat back to Montreal. Now, Mr. McCarthy, like I said, denies those claims that he was granting permission to Mr. Morris in any way. Mr. Morris's bond was set at $25,000, which is somewhat ironic. You steal a super yacht, you get a bond for $25,000. You assault people, they're giving you PR bonds. Go figure. But in this particular case, the judge found that Mr. Morris was a flight risk. He'll more than likely be prosecuted in federal court. Why? Because he went over state lines. That's how the feds get involved. If it involves interstate commerce, i.e. over state lines, that gives the federal courts jurisdiction. Good luck, Mr. Morris. You're going to need it. Hopefully you have a text message or something giving you permission to take the boat for a test drive. And finally today, ladies and gentlemen, our dumb criminal contestant of the day. And now I can tell you that I have represented lots of people over the years that have been charged with distribution of drugs. And street sellers, I've seen them do various things. They have hid drugs in various orifices of their bodies to prevent them being discovered by police if they got arrested. I've had clients that have tied strings around various appendages where they would tie a string, and at the other end of the string would be a baggie of, say, crack cocaine. And then they could pull the string up when they're loose-fitting pants and sell the cocaine. Well, a gentleman by the name of Shaft Bang Adams, he's done something that I have never seen before. He was contacted by police. He was arrested. And while they were doing a body cavity search at the jail, guess what they found? Methamphetamine. Where did they find this item from Mr. Shaft's person? from the defendant's penis skin. His foreskin, ladies and gentlemen. We'll just leave it there today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk.